Okay, I pushed the record button. I was very careful not to push the stream button, although I don't know where it would stream. We haven't pushed this button in a long time. Watch this.
Oh my God.
And here's what I'm positing for the show title. Oh, I totally forgot. Do you recall that back in the day when Jay and I were doing a show, that I would be completely inept at doing the technical part, even though it was my responsibility?
I remember some trial and error.
And I would forget things. I totally forgot to bring up the music thing. After that happens, it's supposed to play this. Once upon a time, I was the king of the dial. I used to be a radio guy. What happened to me? I'm just another idiot with a pod. Did that make sense to anybody? Do you even remember hearing it?
Yes, and I mean, I understand the song parody. If there's another level, I'm not sure I got it.
It's just, we're a couple old radio guys. I was never king of any dial, maybe for a month or two in Arizona out of my entire career. Jay was king of dial for all the time. And then podcasting is sort of the refuge, the last refuge of washed up former wannabe radio stars.
Well, of the impulse of wanting to do these things.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where it's gone.
All right. So welcome back to the Jay and Gary Show, everybody. Over there on that side of the screen is Dale, Jay's kid. And on this side of the screen is me, Gary, Jay's brother. And missing at the moment, and may appear at any time, is Jay's daughter, Sara, who was she's working as a waitress, I think, or is she working as a bartender, a waitress? What's her job?
For some kind of a restaurant, bar and grill situation. That's all I know.
Yeah. And this being New Year's Day, last night being New Year's Eve, she was working until probably just got done. And although we had set up approximately now to record, she is nowhere to be found, and she may show up at any time.
Yeah.
So here's the deal. Well, for one thing, so what you got right now is me, an introvert guy who doesn't have conversations very well unless there's one of these things in front of me, which makes me a professional broadcaster. Mm-hmm. And Dale, what's your excuse?
I mean, give me a topic and get me started, I guess. But I need the structure right now because I'm floating in the wind in my own life.
Did Jay ever attempt to get you into broadcasting other than the one time we brought you into the booth when you were approximately, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 to record intros and bits for me when I was starting my massive radio career in Arizona back in 1987?
So I thought about this before and after the incident this year, his death. And he wasn't that into like explicitly trying to get me to do things or shape me to do anything. But he brought me to work an awful lot when I was a little kid, and he showed me all the things. He showed me the 4 tracks they used and the machines they had to erase them, and showed me how they were beginning to digitize a lot of operations back then with these, they were Macintosh classics. And
so, very early in the computer world, in the personal computer world.
Up to the analog equipment and the soundboards and everything. And he showed me all of these things as he did them. And I had the opportunity to observe, but he never said, you need to do this, or gave me, I would help him. I would like hold things or copy things, or, he would teach me how to erase the carts. So I could erase a lot of them for him.
To give you the grunt work.
Yeah. And that's the stuff you have to be comfortable with to do any kind of career or job. So, but he never, I wish he had given me that nudge. Maybe I needed that little extra, but I also don't think I could have sustained the career seeing what I grew up into.
Yeah. So. There's a spark or there isn't. And he gave you the opportunity for a spark to ignite.
I could do it if there weren't other elements to it that I could not do. Like there are parts of it that I think I would have been great at. But.
Yeah, well, there's within our world, our Jay and my world, there's the on-air part, but there's far more opportunity for technical work that is not on the air. Mm-hmm. In radio, maybe not so much. Most radio stations, it's a combo operation. So you've got the office, you've got maybe a production person who assembles commercials and stuff, and then the on-the-air jocks, and then that even that has disappeared. It's all becoming automated, and so. But in the television world, which has been most of my life, most of the jobs are not on the air. Most of them are behind the scenes, and there's tons of those, and there still are. Although automation is taking some of them, but there still are. But I think what intrigued you was the computers.
Yeah, definitely.
Because that's where you went.
Yeah, and that's what got me into Macs. I was big into the beige Macintosh computers in the 90s. So before Apple became what it has become, before it turned into candy.
They still make some serious computers, don't they?
Yeah, but I think that the roadblocks in their operating system and user interface make them a little less serious seeming to me anyway. So
you're a Windows guy now? Or are you a Linux guy?
Always Linux. Yeah. In fact, I'm transitioning my main computer from Windows 10 to Linux now. I've got everything important off of it just to inventory what I could do on Linux versus Windows, and I don't need Windows at all anymore. So,
which for anybody out in the audience who is a Linux head, which flavor do you use?
I use Mint, Debian, and another one right now. It just depends on specifically what I need to do. But I use Mint for personal computers because it's super easy.
Okay, my Facebook Messenger is pinging with a note from Sara. She says, "Getting ready. I slept in." Let me type back. "I've started. Join in when you can." And I'll put an exclamation mark to show I'm serious about it. And I'll get ready for the 3-shot. I'm glad of this because we'll have Sara to talk to. We'll have Sara to kick around, which means I don't want to get into the deeper subject. Now, to be sure, this is unplanned. There's nothing written down about what we're going to do. I don't have an outline in my head. I don't have even Post-it notes about what to do. But I have some things that will probably occur to me, and one main thing that I kind of want to talk about. But I'll wait till Sara's here because I'm always my sort of motto for preparing shows is just do them once. Don't do them over and over. Don't have a pre-show where you do the show and talk about what you're going to do, and then actually start rolling and do the show, because then everything sounds canned. Asking the question sounds canned. Getting the answer sounds canned. So I prefer spontaneity. When you do that, what you're supposed to do is then edit afterwards to clean things up and tighten things up. And I hate editing. I spent my entire life video editing. I don't intend to edit anything on this. Once we're done, unless there's some big disaster in the file, I'll take the file and bump it up to YouTube and Facebook. The one consideration that I'm giving to doing this at this point is that I didn't push the live button. We're not going to our Facebook or our YouTube channel live. Jay and I had started just doing recordings, and then we
you're comfortable professionals.
Yeah, and then to me, when it's going out there live, even though there was at most 2 people, and I think you were usually one of them, actually watching the live thing.
Yeah,
it's more stimulating, I guess. I just feel more energized by doing a live show. But pushing the record button gets me like 70% of the way there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, live is on air. That's the old feeling, that was the most important thing in the studio in a lot of places.
Yeah.
So, that same rush.
Yep. What was going on live. And, most of Jay's career was doing stuff live.
Speaking of on air.
Oh, you got the stag.
Although it's really not wanting to show up.
No, if you want that to show up well, you'd have to push the turn off your chroma key.
Mm-hmm. We're fine. We've seen it before. It's a 6-pack of stag with a light bulb in it and a very old power cord on it.
Yeah, apparently worth hundreds of dollars on eBay right now. I shouldn't have told you that.
Oh no, I don't need hundreds of dollars that badly. Oh wow, it's a very old cord. It doesn't even have the
no ground plug on it. No ground. Yeah.
Oh, I see.
It's not. Is it polarized? Is one side bigger than the other?
Oh no, it's just that they have the little. Those are just little notches. They're not holes all the way through. That's what I noticed. Is the main difference were that these were solid. Which I learned recently, those are only really, those are there to line up with these tiny little rounded bits in the socket, just as another measure to hold it in place, to make sure there's a full contact made.
I thought that was what let the electricity go through.
I mean, it probably multiple functions. Everything in there is probably so. And the design hasn't changed on the basics in so long. They were very well thought out and carefully engineered for multiple functions.
A long time ago, and I actually have a pet peeve about AC plugs because they are
upside down all the time.
Well, they're often hard to plug in and mostly hard to unplug, which can be good. I mean, you don't want them just falling out of the sockets, and sometimes that does happen. But often they'll be, they're down on the floor, and often we'll get a table or something in front of them, so they're hard to reach. And now you're awkwardly straining your hand somewhere in there to try to get a grip on it and pull it out, and can't get it out. And then by the time you do, you slam your hand into something else, and that's been an irritation. If it were to be designed today, it would probably be very different.
Yeah.
But we have to maintain compatibility going back decades with one big change, which was made when they added the ground plug to it. Mm-hmm. And probably prevented many electrocutions.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it can't get any simpler. Yeah, it's going to be a very long time before that changes.
Yeah. I mean, there's 2 different standards in Europe. There's a British, England, Great Britain. That's not Europe anymore, right? It kind of used to be, and now they're. Anyway, they got their own, and then the continent has a different one.
I didn't travel. The time I went to Europe, I didn't have any electronics with me. I didn't have any phone chargers because we didn't have them. And I didn't have to pay attention to outlets or anything. Now that's all I would look at is every little bit of infrastructure. I did not pay attention at all. I wish I had. And if I had a phone charger, of course, I would know everything about power outlets while I was there.
One of the interesting things that's occurred with the all of our devices, phones and tablets and the relatively low power things, is that all of their chargers, all of the devices you would plug into the wall, handle the European standard as well as the American standard. In addition to being a different plug, it's also a vastly different. It's double the voltage. Here, our voltage is. When I grew up, our voltage was 110 volts. Now it's 120.
I think, and that's just to accommodate spillover. I think without shorts and sparks and hazards.
But in Europe, it's 220 to 240. Mm-hmm. And they do fine with it.
Plug your oven in anywhere over there.
Yeah, but your phone charger would handle both. So all you got to do is put the adapter plug on it and plug it in. Mm-hmm. Older and hair dryers and things like that are designed to handle both voltages. Back in the day, you had to bring a transformer with you, which meant that half of your airline luggage weight was taken up by bringing a transformer, and it would overheat because you're always going to try to use an appliance that was going to draw more power than the transformer was designed to handle. So, welcome to This Week in European Electronics. As we wait for Sarah I told her, join when you can. I should have said hurry up. She's brushing her hair and putting on a little makeup.
Could have just put a hat on,
things that we wouldn't have to worry about if we had dedicated ourselves to being just an audio podcast.
I need to be able to see the people speaking. I've figured out for myself. And it's been incredibly hard to get into audio only anything. Audiobooks, I fall asleep faster than when I read. So
telephone calls, of course, have been around since before all that other technology.
And I was never much for long telephone calls either. So
yeah, there's a couple of people that if I'm talking to them on the phone, it'll be a couple-hour conversation. Of all the people that I know, I understand that kids today don't like talking on the phone at all. They would much rather text.
They're afraid to call people in businesses. I'm at least not like that.
Yeah, well, you're not a kid anymore.
No, but I'm kind of after the line of separation of a lot of things that people are noticing being different right now. But I had a friend we used to talk on the phone, and we lived in the same town, but he had a second line at his house, and we were never very busy. So we would talk on the phone for 2 hours at a time, and I would wrap the cord around the middle of the house, get an impression on my ear. I don't know what we would talk about now in retrospect, mostly Star Trek, I think. But we both had dial-up, so we couldn't be on our computers. We couldn't be online at the same time. So sometimes we would hang up and then direct connect over modem and play computer games against each other. So I had that whole experience.
You're worried about 40, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you feel like you feel like you're on a dividing line between cultures.
Kind of, but then to compound it, I grew up with straight up baby boomer parents, and everyone around me had younger parents. So I'm further separated. And in this generational gap in my family where I have cousins that are 10 years older or younger than me, so I didn't have any siblings or similar aged cousins, so I was always alone. So I don't feel connected to anything culturally.
Yeah, so rather than feel like on a divide, you just feel like you're on your own planet.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
sometimes, yeah.
I feel definitely on the edge of a big divide. Anybody a few years older than me, I will call them the Glenn Miller generation.
Mm-hmm.
And then starting about with me And most boomers, I'm near the leading edge of the boomers. Boomers started in 46, and I was born in 49. So pretty much the leading edge. We're the rock and roll generation.
Mm-hmm.
And all the other cultural differences that go with that. Well, it's weird for the rock and roll generation to be approaching their 80s. But the folks who are up in their 80s, I mean, they were alive during rock and roll. They certainly were. And a lot of them adopted that and said, "Oh, that's cool." You know, I might have been 25 when it started to hit, but I liked it. But a lot of them still don't. I feel like a big cultural divide between people. I'm now 75. People 85 or so. That's pretty big.
I think a lot of the. Well, I
see Sarah's picture. She's almost here. Sarah, are you here?
I'm here.
All right. Let me modify things a little bit here. You can talk. Say hello while I work on getting your picture in.
Hi, everybody. Happy New Year.
Hi, Happy New Year.
I slept in. Cody let me sleep in until noon today because I worked 12 hours yesterday, waiting tables, and getting everybody else in McHenry County set up for the new year. So that was fun. Okay, Jay's over here too. He's just being a little fuss. You want to say hi?
Look at my dino bracelet.
Hey, Jay, can he hear us?
Yeah, but look at my dino bracelet.
A dino bracelet. Oh, let's check that out.
Can you say your name? What's your name?
My name is Jay.
Little Jay.
I am Little Jay.
Yeah, you're Little Jay for now, but you won't be Little Jay all the time. Pretty soon you'll just be Jay. And then after that, you'll be Big J.
Yeah.
How old are you?
I'm 4 years old.
When did you turn 4?
I ate all my healthy vegetables.
No, when's your birthday?
In December 28th.
Good job. 7 days before Grandpa Jay.
Before he passed away.
That's right.
Yeah, you understand that now, don't you?
Wow.
He does. He made the connection. Our cat passed away a couple of years ago, and I had to
passed away.
That's right. I had to explain death to him in a very simple way. And then, when Grandpa got sick, he made that connection that Grandpa was sick, just like Tater Chip was. And that was it. We didn't really have to explain it further.
Roar. Does the dinosaur have a name?
No. It does not have a name.
Should it have a name?
Nope.
Nope. Can you say hi to Uncle Dale?
Hi, Uncle Dale. Look at my dino bracelet.
Yeah, I see it.
Jay had such a good time with baby Charlotte. He talks about her almost every day.
Was Christmas the first time those two got to see each other?
Can you tell Uncle Gary?
No, they met one other time.
Tell Uncle Gary about baby Charlotte.
Yeah, baby Charlotte was so cute. She's so little. He held her on the couch, and he was talking to her. He really liked making her laugh. Right?
Yes.
And we ate breakfast with her.
Pancakes and butter and eggs.
Yeah, so delicious.
And ketchup.
That's right.
And ketchup?
And ketchup.
I'll share a picture of them together.
Jay likes ketchup with his eggs.
Yeah, and soy sauce and rice. What happened?
Oh, look at you.
Yeah.
I think she's asleep in the next room because I don't hear her crying right now.
Oh. That's very cute. And
They are
Grandpa
super
Jay's
cute.
chair.
Yeah.
That was Dad's favorite chair. He would take the best naps in that chair.
Well, we were randomly
The thing is, my
waiting for-
daddy around saying I can't pick my nose.
Jay.
you can't pick your nose?
No.
No, he picks his nose and then his nose bleeds.
Oh, yeah. So it's probably a good idea not to.
And he eats his boogers sometimes, so we've told him that it's going to make his stomach very upset if he keeps doing that.
I don't know whether that's true or not. I didn't, though. But as Jay, Big Jay, was so fond of mentioning from time to time on the podcast, when I was a kid, I had a booger wall. Because I would pull the boogers out and I would stick them on the wall because you don't want them to go to waste. It was fun to see them dry out. So, Jay, I recommend a booger wall. And Mom's saying, no.
Your boogers on the wall instead of in your mouth.
Yeah.
And then they won't go into your belly and hurt your belly.
Right.
Okay, I'll put one on the wall right now.
Hopefully I have not created a monster for you.
That's so cool.
But it's possible that I did. So we were talking about people being on the cusp of generations. You are, well, first of all, I think I got your title up here someplace.
I think I'm considered a millennial, but like at the tail end of millennials. I was born in 94.
Okay, so I feel very much on the cusp of two generations. And Dale feels like he's in a orbit all by himself.
Yeah, what is your generation called, Dale?
Nothing. Well, I was just about to weigh in with my big anthropology degree, right? Whenever you came, I was about to say that it's a little silly, but they're noticeable things. And I think the big one is for people my age and younger than me right now is, do you remember life before the computer and the internet were everything, where you could not function without them? Do you remember like living and having to do things for yourself? I think that's the biggest separator right now for people like between our ages, you know? And I barely do. But of course, if I had chosen to be like other people my age, I could have, already sunk into that kind of lifestyle.
Yeah.
Where did the dinosaur go?
Uh-oh, where'd you put it?
I lost it.
Oh, well, you better go find it. I remember always having a computer and always having internet, thanks to parents that were both in digital media jobs. But similar to that, the biggest thing for my age group is remembering a time before smartphones.
Yeah.
And when you still had a house phone. And I think I got my first smartphone when I was a junior in high school because Dad and I got the same phone. I always wanted to have the new flashy phone, and so he always upgraded with me, and we got Blackberries together. And then when the touchscreen phones became popular, we got touchscreen phones together, and that changed the game, and it was over with after that.
Phones are what we were talking about originally, and Uncle Gary was mentioning that young people seem to be afraid of using the phone, afraid of calling people or staying on for a long time. Yeah, what do you say about that?
Yeah, I think a lot of people are like that. They'd rather get a text. I hear that all the time.
Do you feel that way? Because you're 10 years younger than Dale. You just Is it inappropriate to mention your current age?
No, I just turned 30 this year.
Which is a big
Dad
thing.
died the day before my birthday, so that was fun. But no, I prefer calls. Honestly, I really don't like texting because I will start a text and then put my phone down and forget about it. So conversations usually take a long time to actually have. So I'd rather just call and get.
I think we found the dinosaur. We found the dinosaur.
Yes, good job, Jay. Thank you. Good job. But yeah, no, a lot of people are like that. They would rather just text, so they'll ignore the call and then text you back later. And that's where I disconnect with people, I guess, because I don't know. I'd rather just call and get things figured out immediately than wait a week to have a conversation.
So you are not representative of your generation.
No, not totally. I guess not in that way.
Yeah. And I would love to be able to get into the mind of someone like half your age, someone at 15 or so these days. I don't know anybody that Dale says, don't do that.
Don't. It's so hard. My little brother is 10 years younger than me, and I get very frustrated. Jay boy, thank you, my love. Thank you. I get really frustrated talking to him because it's just such a different world. Like, their slang is different. The way that they dress is different. Their ideas about things are different. And it makes me wonder, I guess, what it's like. I don't know, like when my dad and I would go to breakfast and we would talk just about daily life, I wonder if he got annoyed listening to what I was talking about just as much as I do with my brother.
There are things that don't change, clothing, slang, but, the communication thing, though, I think we can claim that as specific to our time.
Yeah.
Because of phones, mobile phones. I mean, phones had a good, 80 years before we were born. But then mobile phones changed everyone's expectation of when you can answer the phone, when someone's available. And then smartphones and everything else, it's like people are expected to be accessible. If you're not, you're like nothing. Right. And I'm sure there are plenty of TV shows like Black Mirror that address that exact thing. But it's been so fast. I can remember when you did not need to be near the phone, when people did not need to be able to contact you, when you didn't have a public outward profile that you made to let people see who you are, and you didn't have to. That change has been so profound. I think we can sit and complain about how kids talk today around that stuff and not be just like old people before us,
Yeah.
It's not one of those things that always change. Well, I mean, it is now with technology being a major part of our lives. It's always going to be yeah.
That's the thing that I have a problem with, is being expected to be available all the time. And it's like that with jobs, I've noticed. Like my current job, they have this app called GroupMe, and it's basically just a big group chat. But I have it on mute, and I don't look at it until Monday, when we're expected to give our availability for the next week. But they'll sit and talk about things, and I'll come look at it and recap the week, and there'll be a whole conversation going, changes made, ideas thrown out, and whatever. And I'm like, if it was really important, could you guys call? Or I don't know, do we have to? I don't know. I just don't like having to look at my phone all the time and be expected to just be present all of the time. I don't know. I really kind of wish that I would have grown up in the age where you just left a message on someone's machine and you checked it at the end of the day. I was
going to say that. That's what I did. I'd come home from work and I'd play the messages that were on my answering machine.
Yeah. Yeah. I really like the show Seinfeld right now. And that's one of the big things I've noticed, that they kind of just show up at each other's places, or they check their messages at the end of the day and then get back to them later. But they still get together. They still make plans work out. They tell each other when they're going to be somewhere, and then they're there.
I'll give you a hint how that works for them, because it didn't always work for us. They have a script and a producer.
Right.
They're just squishing it all together.
You did sometimes have to knock on somebody's door to see if they were around back in the day. That was a thing. And I know people are terrified of that now if they can't make a phone call. I get the not making a phone call.
I would never just show up at somebody's house now. I can't even imagine.
Oh, yeah, not anymore. No.
Yeah, I had to drop a package off that was misdelivered to our mailbox. We're in one of those places that has all the mailboxes in one place that we don't get delivery to our house. And so a package for someone else a few blocks away was stuck in my mailbox. And wasn't somebody I knew, a neighbor, but not somebody I know. So I went by their house, and it was dark, and thought, well, FedEx leaves things sitting outside all the time. We have a safe enough neighborhood. I didn't feel bad about. I didn't want to ring the bell because it was dark, and And I had some of that feeling though. I don't want to scare the hell out of them by having some stranger appear at the door, big hulking man stranger. So weird.
Don't expect it anymore.
Yep.
And I mean, I've fallen into feeling the same way about texting versus calling and people knocking on my door now because that's how it is. And it's just convenient to go with that. But if somebody pulls in my driveway now, I'm like on it. I'm not terrified. And I know people who are terrified and they have a whole other set of issues, but it's just so irregular. Or if I get a phone call that's from an unknown number, it's so different now. It's like, I know if I'm getting a phone call, I know exactly who I have phone business with. And if it's not them, it's like,
yeah. And with 90% of phone traffic being spam these days.
Oh yeah.
Although I'm on Google Fi, and it does a really good job of either sending it away in the first place, or if it's not sure, it'll show me that a call is coming in and say it's suspected spam. But I really enjoy answering those calls. Lately, I've been getting a lot of calls, and I understand this is a specific kind of scam. A lot of calls where they ask for somebody who is not me, as if it's the wrong number. But I'm getting so many of them. Either my number showed up somewhere that people are. I can't remember if they're all asking for the same person or not. I don't think so. And one of the things that they're looking for is for you to say the word yes.
Yes.
And they can stick that in as permission to do all kinds of things.
Oh, that's scary.
On your behalf. So
I haven't heard about that.
Yeah, be careful
only
about.
If they have the other data points that allow them access.
Yeah.
And that's an old thing too. That I've heard of that one for decades. So don't say yes. Don't say. But yeah, you have to have bled out other points of data for that to be useful. But it doesn't take much.
Yep, that data is pretty much all out there these days to be purchased relatively cheap.
Yeah, and I mean, passwords every time I log into what's the big one? Ancestry.com. And I'm not even really active on there, but my phone always warns me that was in a data breach. So, these people are losing millions and millions of passwords and email combos at a time. One purchase of that software to correlate those. Yeah. And there are people out there doing it. It's an industry.
Yep. I want to interrupt the show. Something that Melissa asked me to do is to remind people that actually I think it's Sara that you are the one that set this up.
Yes, we have set up a memorial scholarship, and we have a goal of $25,000 to meet before the scholarship can become available for people. So we'd really like to keep that momentum going.
And so how do people find that?
It's pinned on my Facebook page as a public post. And it's also on the SIU, I forgot salukifunders.com, I believe is the website. But I can send the website to you so you can link it in the show notes if you want.
Yeah, I switched so we can see what the web address is for those looking at video. give.siu.edu/J-H-Pierce-Memorial-Scholarship. That's a lot. I'll put that as a link in the text that'll go with this, as it's on YouTube, as it's on Facebook, and as it is on audio, and people can find it. What's the idea? What's the goal for that?
So the goal is to just keep his energy alive, I guess. I wanted to do something that was going to be an ongoing thing for people. I thought, if Melissa has the house to keep going with, and, we have all of these things, that's fine. But I want to do something for other people because that's what he did. And that's what his whole life was dedicated to. So the idea is that the $25,000 will be split into five $5,000 scholarships, and that we would just keep this as an open-ended thing. So hopefully, we can keep funding this so every year more incoming journalism students can get a little bit of help, and that he can keep helping people even in his next life.
All right. Jay was a graduate. That's where he took his broadcasting course of SIU. SIU is in Illinois, one of the Illinois state schools, Southern Illinois University. It's down in Carbondale. And that's where he first connected with NPR because their radio station there was a public station. He worked in a lot of commercial stations down there as well. But then he rounded out his career between WILL and WVIK, all in public radio, and his 6 years on the NPR board of directors. So he's well known. A lot of people around the state know him. He's not what I would call a major celebrity. He's kind of a medium size, in the right circles, well-known celebrity.
He's your favorite broadcaster's favorite broadcaster. That kind of.
Yeah, I've heard that a lot.
Yep. So what I think you're discovering is that it is hard to get the word out, to get lots of people who would to learn about it, who would contribute. Is there a specific contribution that you'd be looking for, or is it just $5 and up?
So it's really anything that people feel like they want to give. My goal for January and February is to figure out how to fundraise like he did. That's not my forte, but I really want to tap into that. And I've already contacted, I keep forgetting their name. It's one of the places that he worked for right before he passed. He was helping them out.
There's a
Illinois Public Broadcasting Council. I've reached out to them and explained our mission there. And then I would love to talk to somebody that was also on the board of NPR with him, and WILL, WVIK. I'd love to reach out to people that are high up there and, see if I can work some magic there and get some donations from those places, because he put in a lot of work and he was really passionate about the places that he worked for. And, I think if they knew about it, they would certainly like to help out with incoming people that are also just as passionate. But we'll see, if anybody even wants to give a couple dollars to it, every dollar makes a difference. And I think it's more so just about people understanding the purpose of it and donating because of that, and not just because of a name.
Yeah. Looks like this runs until July 1st.
Yes, but we're going to reopen it. I think I don't know why it only goes until July, to be completely honest. That might be because if we want to have it start in August for the incoming year, then it needs to be done by then. But
so you can start it again.
Yeah. So if we don't meet our goal, we'll start it again. And then, when we do hit our goal, then we'll open it up. So it's not a harsh deadline.
All right. Well, we'll see what happens. Journalism is an interesting field to get into these days.
Yeah, it's different. And it's going to be different for incoming students because radio, because radio isn't the same. And SIU doesn't even have a dedicated just radio program anymore, as far as what I've seen. So that's why we did it for journalism just in general, because that goes for all different mediums.
Yeah, everyone said Jay was a radio man, but he was also, and I think in his mind, he was a journalist. Early in his career, he did the disc jockey thing, but all of his public radio stuff was news, information, and journalism. So that's what he was.
Yeah, he was just dedicated to the people and getting information out to the people and doing things for the community. And I think a big part of that was, making sure that the community had the information and the sources that they needed. One of my favorite stories that I've heard was that there was a huge storm coming in, or like a tornado or something, and he dropped what he was doing and went to the station so that he could get on air and warn people about that. And that's how he was when he was young and when he was older too. He just wanted to make sure that people knew what was going on, however he had to. I remember him being on TV a few times for pledge drives. He did radio. He did, obviously, the podcast. However he could talk to people, he would talk to people.
Yeah, he had a pretty good face for TV. A lot of people in radio have what they call a face for radio, which means they're ugly as sin. But he was a good-looking guy because he looked a little bit like me. So journalism, I'm going to attempt to out somebody here, because I believe there's somebody among the three faces here on your screen, if you're watching on video, who gets most of their news from TikTok. Does that sound familiar to anybody? Sarah raises her hand. How does that work?
I think TikTok is an amazing resource, to be honest. There's a lot of crap on there, but there's also a lot of people that just want to give information. And that's the big conspiracy right now, is that they want to get rid of TikTok. I know. Thank you, my love.
I was doing my homework.
They want to get rid of TikTok because people are getting information that the government doesn't want people to have, like how to grow your own food and how to be self-sufficient and how to get the right news sources. And, people that were previously in the media talking about things that aren't talked about just like on CNN or Fox. So, it's not the best way to get everything, but I think it's a good way to get, people's personal stories and information that you wouldn't see other places.
I'm trying to log into my TikTok account. I'll be a little distracted here because it's not getting my login. I'm not sure why.
And, I have started a sourdough journey because I saw it on TikTok and figured out how to do it. I've found so many recipes. I've figured out different skincare things, how to do my nails without having to go to a salon, how to cut my bangs. That was my most recent journey. I found a lot of book recommendations. There's just a lot of different communities on TikTok, and I think it's beautiful. I really do. But news, there's a lot of great news on there. There's a lot of people that, with the wars going on, there's people that will live stream out there. So you're seeing actually what's going on. Or there'll be people that, get access to a smartphone and they'll tell you, hey, we just got bombed in this area or whatever. But, I don't know. It's a lot of people with a platform. So it gives people that, need a voice, and unfortunately, sometimes it gives people that don't really need a voice or shouldn't really have a platform. But it's for everybody.
So I'll push back a little bit on the idea that first of all, there is is it a bill? Did Congress vote to ban TikTok? Was it a presidential declaration? I don't think I even know the details.
Bill, and then they gave a certain amount of time for the company to sell, so that
sellers shut down their U.S. operations, and it would be the day before the inauguration, so the 20th, I think, or 19th of this month, the Supreme Court's going to hear the case. And Trump has been lobbying the Supreme Court to say, just put it on pause until I can sort things out.
TikTok helped him out.
Well, he was the one who started the push to get it shut down because China is manipulating the data they get from it. And I hate to agree with him on anything, but I wish they would apply this equally to Meta and Google. And because the reason I can't agree with the usefulness of any of them is that they're all formats that are just, to somebody who likes things to be linear and make sense and who is capable of searching for things themselves, it's a nightmare to navigate these things for me. I don't use them because their intended purpose is whatever Mark Zuckerberg or whatever his weird idea of how people should communicate is, and they don't allow for true freedom of communication because you have to get everything shaped in whatever format, whether it's a character limitation or if it's how long the videos can be. I think we could do better. I think if we really wanted to freely share information, the tools are out there, but they have packaged their idea of it, and it's very convenient to use. But I kind of secretly am cheering for it to get shut down. So, well, not secretly. I'm cheering for it to get shut down.
Openly cheering for it to be shut down.
Yeah.
Do you have a first
a lesson also about resourcefulness?
Do you have a First Amendment thought?
No. And
how do you get around the First Amendment on shutting something like that down?
Well, it's not being shut down because of freedom of speech. It's being shut down because it's being used as a surveillance tool by somebody that we claim is like our state enemy. And it really is. It actually is. So, and not even them, anybody. Like the way that billionaires look at giving us software is they look at how they can harvest information and money from us. And I just would love to see us use things that's not the primary function of the software. The primary function actually is to let us communicate freely without restrictions. And we would fund that. Somebody like me would pay for something that was like a Wikipedia of TikTok, that belonged to everybody and the infrastructure belonged to everybody. And I try to use things like that, like Blue Sky or whatever. But the whole Twitter culture is there too, and it's full of bots. And we're at a lot of these things where we can't go back with language models being used to determine what happens with people's lives now.
You're talking about AI, chat GPT sort of thing.
Which I'll call it what it is. It's a language. It's a bunch of code. It's really dense code. It's not artificial intelligence.
Leo Laporte likes to call spicy autocorrect.
Yeah. Yeah. But, we're living under the whims of a room full of people that have really dumb ideas because they half read a couple books and went off and decided to make it reality. And nobody asked for it. So I would like to see us freed from them and their ideas and establish some kind of real free infrastructure for the people. But, and that's kind of what was behind NPR and public radio and public broadcasting to begin with. And
so who could create something like that? You wouldn't want the government to do it because the temptation is too strong.
I prefer the government to corporations in some respects, but there are, hundreds of millions of interested and engaged people out there with low to mid-level resources. It's just that we're all so busy doing things every day that we don't want to do, that we can't establish greater things, at this point. So I'm just dreaming. Those are my dreams.
See, I don't look into it that far. I just think TikTok is a really nice way to unwind my brain from the day. And I've found some good things along the way.
But if you're using it for news, for figuring out what's going on in the world, how do you curate that yourself? Who do you follow? Where do you pick up that information?
You develop your algorithm by liking videos that I don't know, just that pertain to what you want to listen to. So, I like a lot of, there's one specific account, I think, I keep forgetting what it is, but I think it's Pearl Mania 5000 or something like that. But it's this redheaded guy, and he just deep dives into different things going on in the news in that day. And he's very liberal. So, that's kind of, I started watching his videos and liking them. So I see him pop up on my feed a lot. And then people like him that are into more of the social justice type things, like people that are in support of Luigi killing that CEO. And that guy. I love that guy.
What's this? Missing Congresswoman found.
Yeah,
we're missing a Congresswoman? Where was she found? In a nursing home? Well, I mean, Congress people are old. Maybe she fell down. She needed some rehab. In the dementia unit?
That's where you're getting your.
We just have to guy.
That's not the only place that I'm getting my news. I do just want to be clear about that I do read NPR every day. I have the app. And I read on the New York Times sometimes, but I do read the news more often than I get things on TikTok. But I do use TikTok as kind of a jumping off point. So if I see something on TikTok, I'll Google it, look into it a little bit, and then go from there.
Okay, but he is Pearl Mania 500.
500, I was close.
Yeah, you're close. And it was enough to get me there real quick. So good job.
But it is, I think it's a good jumping off point because TikTok, I guess now you can make 10-minute videos, but it used to be that it was just little 30-second videos. So you wouldn't get a whole lot at once. But, if you find something and then you're curious about it, you can go and search the internet for a more credible source or, just a bigger story.
Do you follow are there mainstream journalists releasing things there? People that you will also find on ABC, CBS, NBC, CNN.
I don't follow any of those people.
They're there probably, but
I think they all have TikToks, but I don't really trust big celebrities in their TikToks because they usually have social media managers that make videos for them. So like on Instagram, Facebook, all of that's not really them doing it. So I don't know. It's usually just clips from their shows.
I mean, I let people curate media for me. I know how to find a source and trust it and everything, but there are a few people you trust and you can find them on TikTok or YouTube or whatever. And then you can kind of look around them, see who's around them, who they're associated with, to find other people that you trust. And it's still possible to have genuine trust and communication with people for sure. Who's that one guy that I follow on 8 different platforms? Ryan Tyler Cohen, is that his name? BTC. He's a left-wing commentator that's very well connected and keeps it real.
I'll look. I'll start with the.
He has a legitimate job in journalism that he turned into this whole streaming thing, I think, is his background, but there are a couple.
Yeah, one of the things.
Yeah, sorry, I think I have the right number. Hey, Davey, just wanted to say.
One of the things irritating about TikTok is as soon as you start, it's playing.
Yeah, I hate that.
Yeah. So
again, that's their idea of what communication should be. They think that you want to be bombarded with unsolicited video and sound every time you navigate to something. It's just a symptom of a larger problem. But anyway, there's some people like that even I follow. Although these are all his little shorts and sound bites, he does long form and actual interviews and actual things like that.
This is why.
It is no wonder that the heroes who stormed the beaches of Normandy and faced down communism sadly say they don't recognize our country anymore.
Yeah, so first of all, the soldiers who stormed the beaches of Normandy are roughly between 98 and 102 years old today. Pretty sure they're not.
Okay, so interesting, because you won't get that kind of commentary even on like MSNBC.
Right. It's just pretty honest reaction, Yeah. And so there, I'll agree. There's a good part about these kind of like streaming journalists is that they don't have the necessity to be composed and correct, and they can just say what's true, and it's only on them, not their network and their bosses.
Yeah, as I discussed with Jay early in our first podcast, I have a fraught relationship with the word true.
Mm-hmm.
I try to stay away from it. I try to not say this is the truth. This is this is what I know. This is what I believe, and these are some things I think I can prove. But I
think that example that you played was a numerically true situation, though. His reaction was true.
Yeah.
To that excited woman's statement about American history.
Yep. Well, as we approach the 1 hour point, actually we slid past the 1 hour point. It's time to start the show. Is Facebook going to make any noise here on this channel? No, it's not. We played this with Dale, but Sarah, you weren't here, so now at the 1 hour point, let's start the show. Once upon a time, I was the king of the dial. I used to be a radio guy. What happened to me? I'm just another idiot with a pod. So, No Simple Podcast is the title that I have chosen for this episode of the show. As we come back, the last one, a couple of quick blurbs as Jay was in the hospital last time I was there. And the last one after he had passed away, the morning that he had passed away, is the last thing I put there after. But we had a couple things afterwards, an attempt to stream from a couple of the memorials, which were somewhere between in Champaign, a total failure, and in Carbondale, it was there, but it was difficult to hear. So those things have been on the channel, but this is the first time that we tried to do a show since Jay passed away. And so the title, No Simple Podcast, I like to insert the word podcast in place of what might have been an original or some more appropriate word. Do you guys have any idea what I'm talking about when I say No Simple Podcast? Everybody's shaking their head no. So let me play something that will probably spur your memory. There's a line in this song, right?
No Simple Highway.
Yeah, we'll get there. I don't know if this was Jay's favorite song. I know the last week I was there when I could talk to him, the last week I was there, he was sedated to the point where he couldn't communicate. And that was the couple days before he died.
If my words did glow with the gold of sunshine.
So the week before that, he was in the hospital, but he could talk to us. Friends gathered all around. and he wanted to hear Grateful Dead. And remember, we had bought a radio that also worked as a Bluetooth speaker, and we played lots of music for him. But I also played this song. Well, I played a lot of Grateful Dead. He was asking for that, but one of the two of you told me which song he wanted to hear the most. Is this ringing a bell?
That was me.
Yeah, so you said he wanted to hear Ripple by Grateful Dead.
Yeah, so on his last treatment, I took him and sat with him, and then on our way home, it was the last time that we did a podcast episode when him and I were sitting outside. He'd had a really good day, but we were in the car, and I was playing the Beatles. And he was like, "Oh, this music feels so nice to listen to. I've got to show you a song." And he showed me Ripple, and he told me that was his favorite song ever.
Okay.
And that I needed to listen for this one little bit.
Here it is.
And when that little bit played, he started crying. And
it's coming up. Here it comes.
That was not made by the hands of men. There is a road, no simple highway.
We're all gonna cry.
Between the dawn and the dark of night, and if you go, no one may follow. That path is for your steps alone.
That's the line, right?
yeah, and after we listened to that song a couple times, he told me that he was feeling really weak, and that he just didn't think he had more time. And I was like, I can't lose you this year. Like, you have to keep going. You know, you have potentially a whole year. And he just looked at me with the saddest eyes and said, "Sarah, that's exhausting to think about. I can't." And it was, oh my gosh, I think 2 weeks later that he ended up passing.
So my connection, my memory of this particular song, after you told me which one it was, and I played it, that week that I was there, I was there for 3 different times. The first week, he was not in the hospital yet. The second week, he was in, and the third week is the week that he died. And you told me that this was the song that he wanted to hear. And so I finally figured that out and played it. And he couldn't speak very well. He had an oxygen mask in his nose, and his throat was dried out, and he couldn't talk very well. What he did was he mouthed the words. He knew the song. He had it memorized. So he mouthed the words all the way through. I think John Henke, his friend, was there, and I was there. And we were the only two in the room when he was doing that. So it was, kind of a special and very private thing. In all the pain and just futility that he was feeling, that he described to you, hearing this, I got the feeling that, and the rest of the music and all the friends around gave him a lot of comfort.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think it was a really good idea to get that radio in his room so that he could hear his favorite songs and have that little bit of peace for a moment. I can't even imagine how scary that must have been for him to have people coming in and out, saying goodbye, and just feeling these really strong emotions and having to face that he could go at any time. But music is really powerful, and it can take you away for a minute. So having that, and, as sad as it was for all of us to have to listen to that song 100,000 times, I'm sure it made him comfortable.
I know Melissa said at one point she never wanted to hear it again.
Yep, that final time hearing it at his memorial in Champaign being sung.
So sorry, Melissa, if you're listening to this at some point.
I think Corey's sister really did an amazing job at singing it, and I know I had watery eyes the entire time. But yeah, I could go the rest of my life without listening to it. It's always going to make me cry now. I don't think I'll ever be able to listen to that song and not cry. But, there's a lot of songs like that. Like For Good from Wicked. When my grandma passed, that was the song that she really loved. And so now my mom and I listen to that and just cry every time we hear it. And it's been 15 years and it still brings up the same emotions. So, Ripple will go right along next to that.
I had never heard it before. Most of the time when I hear new music, and I listened to some Grateful Dead, it just had never come up in any playlist that I was playing. And of the Grateful Dead songs, I like about 20% of them, 25%, which is a high percentage for me of any group. But I'd never heard that one before. It is now, well, because I played it so many times as I was visiting Jay and learning about it, I got my year in review from Google Music, and it says, that's your number one song. I like it a lot. I made the effort to memorize the lyrics, which is difficult for my 75-year-old brain. It took a long time, and I still can't quite always come up with what the next one is going to be unless I'm hearing it play. When I told Cindy about it, I said, just trying to understand what the lyrics are. It's a bunch of non sequiturs and, bizarre connections. And she said, welcome to the Grateful Dead. Yeah. Just that's what they're often about. I don't know if this is going to drag you guys down painful memory lane. But Jay's friends, the folks who were more likely to be listening to this podcast, got a few of them got to come visit. A fairly large number, but still ultimately only a few. And others got quick snapshots of things that we posted on social media, on Facebook, and not so much on TikTok. But I'm wondering if they would benefit, if we would benefit from a little bit of remembering the few weeks that we went through that went from when he was diagnosed the first time in May to when he passed away in April, what our journey was as we went through that with him. One of the things that I remember most distinctly, among many things, is that we thought he had more time. From the very beginning up until almost the very end, we thought he had more time.
Well, I think that's the hard part. He thought he had more time. I don't know if he was just being extremely optimistic or if I don't know how he thought originally it was 3-ish years. But as soon as I started reading about it, I knew that was not likely to happen. And I read about it pretty much every day just so I could keep myself realistic. The 3 months was still shocking, of course, because that was so quick. But I didn't think that we had 3 years. I was mentally preparing myself for much less than that. But any amount of time, I mean, once you get diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer, any amount of time is good. some people go within a week, and some people go, it takes years to get them. But, you know, there's, as shitty as it was to hear the doctors keep saying over and over, like, we can't tell you an exact time because it's different for everybody. It really is different for everybody. And that's the unfortunate thing. There's just there's no guide for it.
Yeah. The 3-year statistic came with a percentage.
Yeah, that was less than 4% of people. And that was like really great health, young. Age has a lot to do with it, I think. I didn't know actually that he was a smoker until he, like, I think closer to when he was diagnosed, maybe like shortly after that. And then I just found out over his birthday, Corey had a special pack of cigarettes, and he was like, in honor of your dad. And I was like, what? And he was like, these are the ones your dad smoked. I'm like, oh.
I didn't know.
I didn't know that he was a smoker like that. But, you know, that has a lot to do with it also. So I don't know. It, you know, even a young, like if I got pancreatic cancer, I wouldn't expect to live more than a year. Just, you know, because so few people do. But yeah, it was fast, and it's still, I can't wrap my brain around, you know, the timeline. That's the hardest thing to think about.
Well, the main determiner is when it's first found, and that's what fuels the statistics. And if, say, that's what they had determined when he first had stomach pain, it might have been a year or two, or 6 months to a year or something. But
right. If they would have looked a little further into the diabetes diagnosis at 68 years old, which is unheard of, and, you know, done a scan at that point, they probably could have found something, and this could have been taken care of sooner. And who's to say, honestly, because, you know, then you think about the chemo that he went through and how big of a toll that took on his body. And, you know, would he have had to go through that for a longer time? Would they have been able to do surgery? You know, who knows, like, what his quality of life would have been no matter what stage they found it. That's the thing I think about, is like, at least he was put out of his misery and didn't have to go through chemo and not eating and not enjoying life and not, I mean, he couldn't do anything. Those 3 months were spent just miserable. The day that we did the last podcast, he ate a donut and half of an apple, and that was the most he had eaten in weeks.
Yeah.
And
we hung on to those little breakthroughs as if they were going to make a big difference, and they couldn't because they were too isolated, too small.
Yeah. The best case scenario there for weeks was for daily chaos to end and for us to go home sustainably, because there was an idea that there could still be a window if it was 2, 4, 6, 8, maybe 2 months, weeks. I was saying into months. That he could have some kind of like convalescence at home, and just be stable. Yeah. But we kept losing, the stability kept slipping, because of stuff that was happening at the hospital, just normal, you know, neglect of one thing because you're focusing so much on another. And then basic things start to take over, like infections and bed sores. And, but the pancreatic cancer is not what killed him. For sure. In fact, the chemo had improved it toward the end. As I understood it, the only prognosis with pancreatic cancer that is longer than a year is if it is caught early enough to remove kind of the head of the tumor from the pancreas before it metastasizes. Yeah. And we were well beyond that.
Yeah. There's an operation that I read about called the Whipple procedure.
Yes, that's it.
Which is... I'm not sure what stage you have to be in, but probably not 1. Stage 4. Stage 1 is when they can do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that is surgical. I don't know the details, but
they remove like half of your pancreas, and then they kind of like reroute it with the liver, I believe, with a piece of the liver. Yeah, a very basic understanding, but it's just it's radical in that it removes way more than is needed to just try and stop it before it spreads. So,
yeah, but it was not something that they could do with him because it had gone way too long, and he was misdiagnosed early on. And Sarah, you had mentioned that the doctors would not provide much of a prognosis or a clue. They were probably being extra gentle with us, and they probably do that all the time. There was one, wasn't one of the doctors, and I don't know what department, I don't remember what department she was from, but I think it was more psychology, who called us out to the hallway. And I don't know if you were in this discussion.
Yeah.
I think, was more direct with us and said, no, you're not looking at years, you're looking at weeks.
Yeah.
And
That was time throughout the whole process that we got a real answer from somebody and just honesty. I think, I understand that, for liability, they can't say, oh, he's got this amount of time or whatever, but to just be human with us for a second, just take off your white coat and be a human and tell us it's not looking good. You shouldn't expect him to, to recover from this. Obviously he's not going to go into remission. We know that. We know he's not going to make it 10 years. But, just for us to be able to mentally prepare to lose a loved one, there's got to be something else they can say. There's got to be, like that nurse, Nurse Sheila, who I will never forget, the nurse that was with us and held our hand.
What she did.
She was the realest one, and she was the only one. She said, just outside of being a nurse, I have seen multiple people with this condition, and it's going to be like you're in the last 24 hours. And then held our hand.
Yeah, that's all we needed was someone to say, I've seen this happen 100 times, and this is how it usually goes.
Exactly.
But between insurance, administration, everything, they can't. Yeah, that was very frustrating. Having 20 doctors come by and not know anything different at the end of the week. Not knowing anything for certain because each one contradicted the other. Yeah. That was nuts. And then we had doctors and nurses coming in who didn't know what the last one had said or done, or who didn't know his current condition. They were saying weird things to us that were inappropriate.
Yeah.
It was such a mess.
Yeah, it was a huge mess. And I think that he did get the care. I don't think that
the basics, yeah.
They didn't give care. I think they did.
Yeah.
He had a ton of doctors. He had a huge team. It was just too far gone. There's nothing they could do. I think they were just putting tape on issues, and they couldn't, I don't know, there were too many holes in the ship for them to.
Well, and they were waiting for clearances and waiting for schedules to shift back around and waiting for this doctor to come back, and that doctor's on break and this one's on vacation. It's just, I'm not just like the system killed him, but it kind of, the system prevented the right things from being done immediately every time. And they do in every case like this.
The original thing, though, what it all goes back to, in my opinion, is the original doctor that he had that was just his primary, that diagnosed him with diabetes in his 60s and didn't look further into it. And then when he came in with complaints of abdominal pain, didn't look further into it and was going to do a scan to look at his gallbladder, but that was going to take 3 weeks to happen. And when he texted me and asked me, about abdominal pain, I immediately had just a sick feeling in my stomach. I knew that it was something more sinister than that. And sure enough, that's when he went to convenient care and they found tumors all over him. So, my big if I'm angry with anybody, it's with that primary doctor that had the opportunity to do something and didn't. And I don't know if that's because of protocol or because of whatever issue, but man, you know, if something abnormal happens like that, just do a scan, you know, we have the technology, we have these resources. And if you can go so quickly into urgent care and get a CT scan, I don't understand like what happened with that doctor. And I don't know if he even cares or if he even knows the outcome, but part of me, you know, feels that really negative energy and is like, I hope that he can't sleep at night sometimes thinking about that. 'Cause I can't sleep sometimes when I think about that, and I spiral and I'm like, what was going on with that guy? You know, that breaks my heart that happened. I don't know. There's a lot of good people that have these awful things happen to them, but you know, if something can get caught sooner, that's what they're in this business for, to prevent and treat horrible diseases. And he did not do that. So that's very frustrating.
Yeah. Jay talked about that a little bit. When we started the podcast, it was, I want to say it was fascinating in a gallows fascination way to listen to him describe what was going on as he didn't know from one podcast to another. Kind of out of the blue, he said, I'm in pain all the time.
I think that was the pain talking too, because I think about that conversation you had. I only watched it once, but I remember it strangely when he was talking about how he remembers having a stomachache every day of his life. I don't even think that was necessarily true, but I think that was his current pain and how long he'd been dealing with it, talking, because I know like the whole first part of the year he'd worked with me, he was having stomach issues. And at that point, there were some theories that I don't know if his doctor or he had put out there. Maybe there was some like abdominal muscle separation thing happening. There were a few things that could have been. And I was a little worried, but also you know, and maybe it's a man or a father-son thing, but I let him mind his own health and he lets me mind my own health. You know, we trust each other to look out for ourselves. So I didn't push him or anything like that around him.
I am fortunate in that my wife, Cindy, does not let me mind my own health.
I don't. Not at all.
No.
Whenever Dad complained to me, I told him, you need to go, like, anytime. And, you know, he ignored me most of the time. But I got Melissa in on it that last time. And I told him, you know, if you don't text me by this time, I'm just going to come to your house. I'm going to come pick you up. Because you can't ignore that stuff. You know, I didn't really get stomach aches, and I had a very bad stomach ache one day that just wouldn't go away. And I ended up having to get emergency surgery to get my appendix out. You know, your body's telling you something when you're in pain, and just go get it looked at. You know, like I don't get it. How such a, he was just so stubborn, and it is really irritating. I know that a lot of the time it probably is just a stomach ache, but you never know.
Well, when it goes on that long, continuously, when it's chronic like that, yeah. And it seems to me scans are easy. Maybe they're a little expensive. He had good insurance. You do the stuff that lets them see inside and see what's going on. And I guess I don't understand why they couldn't see those tumors on an early scan. The only reason would be they didn't take one.
So something that I've read about is that if you go in and, like, for example, if it would have been stage 1, they probably wouldn't have been looking for it. So the radiologist wouldn't have specifically looked for that so they wouldn't have pinpointed it. Unless that's exactly what they were looking for, because it would have been so small. So, but when he went in and they found a lot of tumors, it wasn't just one tumor that they saw. They saw all over his liver and lymph nodes and pancreas, and it was a big tumor at that point. But, unless the doctor had put in orders and said, I'm suspicious of X, Y, and Z, they're not going to look for X, Y, and Z. And unless it's like blatantly obvious, they're not going to do that. And I don't know if that's a problem, like with their protocol or whatever, but to me, they should be looking for X, Y, Z, everything. Every time they look at a scan, they should be looking for everything. I think maybe they could catch things sooner in that way, but they probably don't have time to do that. There's probably not enough people to be doing that. That would take time for scans to get read and sent back. And there's just so many issues with that.
Their AI is now being used to check radiology results in addition to human beings. And, they go back and forth. It was a weird story that I heard the other day that if a radiologist and the AI results conflict, the radiologist tends to think that they are right, when more often than not, the AI was right on diagnoses that are not, really going to be clear. What this reminds me of is my own bout with cancer 5 years ago, which was stage 1 lymphoma. But first of all, I had no pain, no physical symptoms of anything that would have taken anybody, given anybody any reason to go look for things. And had they gone looking for things, the tumor that I had at the time was too small to have shown up. The only reason we noticed it was that tumor had irritated a lymph node and blown the lymph node up to the size of an egg. And it didn't hurt. It was a little spongy feeling, but relatively hard. And went to my primary care doctor, and they said, well, it's probably nothing, but we'll have you see an oncologist just to be sure. And the oncologist said, probably nothing, but, we're going to, they did a ultrasound, determined what the size was, but not what the composition was. They said, well, we will do, actually what they said was, what we're going to do is we're going to take the lymph node out, because if there is a cancer in there, we can't do a needle biopsy because whatever's in there is going to be way too small. We would never hit it with a needle. So we'll just take it out. But it's probably nothing. And then they call back a couple weeks later and said, well, okay, it's cancer and we're making an appointment for you. It was interesting, the phone call, because the oncologist said, I don't want to do this on the phone, but I don't want you to learn that you have cancer by getting a call to schedule the beginning of chemotherapy. I want you to hear it from me first. I didn't want you to wait until we could bring you into the office. They scheduled chemotherapy immediately before they knew how bad it was. I didn't learn how bad it was or how good it was actually until the first day of chemo. And then it turned out to be stage 1, caught very early. And, the rest is pleasant history. It's total remission. They can't find it anymore.
Wow.
My next visit will be the 5th year. At the 5th year point, if they see nothing, they wave goodbye and say, don't come back. Your chances of getting some other kind of cancer or this cancer again are the same as the general population. Mm-hmm. That's what happens when you catch it early. And that's the kind of luck it takes to catch something early.
Yeah. That was the other thing that was so frustrating about my dad's cancer journey, was the amount of time it took from getting diagnosed to starting chemo. It was like they were just talking amongst themselves, and it took weeks. I think it took 2 weeks or maybe a little bit more to start chemo. And, they'd come in and talked about this horrible, aggressive diagnosis, and we need to do this, we need to do this, we need to do this, but nobody was doing anything. It was just a lot of people talking and not talking to him, just talking amongst each other. And that made Melissa so mad. I mean, it made all of us so mad, but just, sitting around and waiting, it's like, what are we doing here? You know what we have. Why can't we? I don't know.
And you rarely get the chance to address that question to somebody who can do something about it.
Yeah. Yeah. And now, the thought comes in of like, should we have just taken him to Northwestern? Should we have just risked it and, gone somewhere else? And, we probably would have waited the same amount of time and maybe we would have gotten different care. Who's to say? But, that thought comes in now because Carl just kind of dropped the ball with the whole thing. Carl, Christy, whatever. There's 2 main hospitals in Champaign, and it started out at Christy, but we were being treated at Carl. And then we switched over to Carl because the Christy oncologist was going to go on vacation or something like that. So it was just a clusterfuck of misinformation and waiting and just.
And in the meantime, he got an infection in his intestines, and that's what did it.
Yeah, that was from something they tried to do to address malnutrition because once again he had not eaten anything.
It was his gallbladder.
Yeah,
his gallbladder was necrotic. That's what
it wasn't. Yeah, they discovered it because there was some discoloration around the feeding port, but it wasn't because of the feeding port.
Okay, yeah, they had because of the malnutrition because he just was not taking in enough food. Yeah. They wanted to put in a port so they could feed him directly into his stomach.
So they did.
Although they put in a complicated one, they didn't put in a simple one. I wasn't a fan of that.
Yeah. They did that and then sent him home so that Melissa and I could do home care. And the next day, not even 24 hours later, it was a 10 out of 10 pain. And we had to come back. And that's when it all just went straight downhill. But they sent him home with a necrotic gallbladder because, again, they didn't just do a scan. They didn't just do an ultrasound to see what was going on before they sent him home. You would think with something so advanced, they would be doing scans before they send you home or before they put you into someone else's care. But no, they didn't.
Even without trying to do something like that, I couldn't understand seeing him during that week from their perspective or mine and judging that he was okay to go home. That deeply disturbed me. And I had to come back home during that time for 2 days. And during that time, I remember just thinking like, they better not try and send him home. Like I fully expected to come back on the Thursday of that week. And that was the day they were going to assess if he couldn't try, but it felt like they were trying to push him out. Like that hospital bed wasn't going to be there in the oncology unit for him for another few days. Like that's not what it was there for specifically. And I really hated that because I knew that would, and that was before we knew there was an infection that was actually going to do it. But I felt like it was that move and the inevitable coming back that we're going to do him in because he was not able to sit up, eat. He wasn't like they had goals for him in that second hospitalization to get enough nutrition into him that we could think about going back home and think about resuming chemo even. And those were kind of pie in the sky in hindsight. But day to day, you have to figure out what gives the longest possibility of, a plateau that he's not just sitting there being like, I don't want to be alive. But yeah, that was the goal of that week, was to get enough nutrition in him through the feedings, which I don't know how those didn't start happening either. And he never met those goals ever, but still we were going home. I never understood that.
That was in the same week that his white blood cells had tanked to 0. And then they gave him some medicine for a couple days, and then they overcompensated. So he was doing really, really, really well. But that indicated to them that there was an infection, because that's exactly what it was.
Yeah, really well is not how he was doing. He had a high white blood count.
Comparatively.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
A blood count, a white cell count. And that should have told them, to look further into that. Again, it's like the looking further into things. Because they said, oh, well, his body's just overcompensating, whatever. And oh my God, it's so frustrating, because then you're sending a stage 4 pancreatic cancer patient home to be cared for by 2 people that are not in the medical field. We have no knowledge of what to do. You're telling us all we have to do is feed him through his thing, and then there's access to help once a week. Are you kidding me?
That was not going to work.
Preparing to handle things, but God, what are we supposed to do? They kind of just sent him home to die, and you didn't say it like that, but that's essentially what it was. And then they were supportive the next day, of course. The really nice nurse that had no idea what was going on, that was taking care of him. I had a love-hate relationship with her, because she was very kind and, just wanted to get him out of pain. So she gave him pain medicine and nausea medicine, and I think Ativan or something like that. And we had all of maybe 10 minutes with him before he was out for good. We didn't have enough time for everyone to really say goodbye. He looked at me so scared and said, "I'm so sorry, Sarah, I love you." And then looked at Melissa and said, "I love you," and then was gone.
Gone in that he was essentially in a coma, not really a coma, but he was so sedated he could not communicate, which is the state he was in the last time I came there.
Right. They said he may or may not, come back in and out, and he never did come back in. And I just... I hate them for that. I feel like they took him in a way and failed him. And I don't know. I'm conflicted with that still, because I think that they did what they could with what they had. I don't think there's a lot they can do with someone with that diagnosis. But, man, every step of it went so fast. And there was just no preparation. There was no support really on a human level, I guess. That was very hard.
Yeah, it does seem I'm sorry, go ahead, Dale.
I was just going to say, I understand how difficult all of their jobs are, but watching it pieced together from that side, there was no organization. There was no overarching guidance that the team of people that were interacting with him and us were following. The loose guidelines of their job, of the workplace we were in, of the things to put away and clean and restock and say and do and check and all that of whatever, but that was it. And that's the disheartening thing, because I'm wondering, is this what it's like for everyone? And it's just too painful for everyone to really talk about. Is there another way? I mean, he had good insurance. It's not like me. If I were in that situation, they'd be like propping me up in the janitor closet or something. I know it's bad, and I vote and I live my life, and I've lobbied in congressional offices to give us better health care. But I didn't think it was that bad. It felt like there was no direction, no organization, no authority. No one's smart behind the scenes making the final decision. Like I said, we saw 20 different doctors that said different things, contradicted each other. it was insanity on top of a situation that would be hard, even if we were guided, if angels were holding our hands the entire time. And we had some, great doctor that we knew and trusted, but
I just don't get.
Yeah, I felt like I got consumed by that. That's what I feel like I lost him to. It was a big confusing cloud.
Yeah.
It seems like there was one job missing from the hospital environment, which was a person to take us all into another room and talk to us about what was really happening every day. And we would get a 5-minute synopsis from a team of doctors who came in. I think, probably most of them were students or residents learning things. And, one primary doctor to explain what the current thought is today. But that was 5 minutes in a whole day. It seems like we should have had someone who could interpret everything and give us a better idea what to expect.
In their medical plan, in the care plan, to them, that is what they did. And that's all they're budgeted for, and that's what is assumed sufficient human contact. And, yeah.
That sounds very 1957.
Yeah. Maybe I just don't understand insurance that well yet, but I don't understand why they couldn't do things without insurance and just later for it.
Lawsuits. Money on lawsuits.
Because a lot of Melissa talks about him being sent home because insurance only allows you a certain amount of time in the hospital, to stay. But why don't you get the option to just do things out of pocket at that point?
Because you individually aren't represented by a company that can afford to pay in case we don't. It's this whole insurance.
You're out of pocket. You're out of pocket would have been enormous.
Thousands. Yeah, but we don't get any assurances at all. We get mild legal protections. Yeah.
Yeah. I just went through and I have lived in the medical world way more in the past few years, between having cancer and now having eye problems. I'm seeing doctors every few weeks, which most of my life was every, an annual exam. And then every few years, maybe something will come up serious enough to see a doctor specifically about it. And, until I hit 60 or 65, 2 or 3 hospital visits. And now it's all the time. They're some of my best friends now. Today I punched the buttons on my phone that say, well, yeah, here's the insurance. I want you to use it. But by the way, in case the insurance doesn't cover something, just bill me. Sure. Your first bill for anything the insurance doesn't cover will be $100,000, and I'll be paying that right away. Don't worry about it. I never saw results of a death certificate. Have you guys seen that? Did they? Melissa will know.
Yeah, she has the death certificate.
Yeah. Earlier you said, Dale, that he didn't die of pancreatic cancer. And I think most people don't die specifically of whatever the cancer is. Right. It is because they have cancer, organs fail. And that's what kills them. It's not a mass, tumor mass sitting inside their body someplace that is getting in the way of living. It's shutting down organs, and that's getting in the way of living. So you die of liver failure, pancreas failure, brain failure, things like that. So I'm curious what the death certificate would say on something like that.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I mean, we were all there. We know the thing that was the threat to kill him, and we know what actually did. But yeah, and that's all I'm concerned about, honestly. That was the truth, and that was in our hands. So, yeah.
Okay, that's the hard road I wanted to cover with you guys. We talked a little bit about the last day that we were all there together. I consider it a privilege, an honor to have been standing there with him and with you when he breathed his last breath. I remember they had a monitor connected that was measuring his oxygen level and his heart. His heartbeat was elevated up into the 110s, 120s, 130s, desperately trying to pump enough oxygen and blood through him to keep him going. And they said, do you want us to turn that off? Is that distracting? And our answer was, many of us are into technology and we live and die by numerical observation. We want to see it. And what we saw, and Sarah, when you called me to come back from the hotel, because I would gone to get a few hours sleep, was when they saw the blood oxygen level start to plummet. Most people sit in the mid 90s. It had dropped into the 80s. They had they were feeding oxygen into his nose, just a small nose clip. And he was in the low 90s. And as soon as they took that out, it dropped into the mid 80s or a little below, almost instantly.
Yeah.
And I did a little bit of Googling about that. There's some discussion about something like that preserves someone longer than they need to.
Well, I can talk about this. We were all there and we did it. That's what it was. We asked at a certain point in day 3, I think, of all of us being there with him unresponsive, why the oxygen was still in. And they said mostly to comfort us. And we all got together and decided, well, it's not comforting us. And we know what's going to happen. There was no return at that point. His internal organs were going to rupture. The only operation for it was to remove most of them to give him like a week during which he wouldn't want to be conscious anyway. So we asked them to remove the oxygen, knowing that soon after we would see the blood oxygen and the heart rate go down. And that's what I mean by we know, because we made the decision essentially.
Yeah.
And that was incredibly fucked up during that time to think about too. But we were, living there in the room. That room was our entire existence. And he was there, but he also wasn't. But yeah, that monitor, the oxygen, this was a conflict that I think we were all having at times with them there. Their default mode was to try and comfort us in ways that weren't necessarily comforting. Maybe we're different than other families. They told us a couple times we were, because other families wouldn't have even stayed. But we wanted to know. We didn't want to just be hung there. We wanted to, yeah. And I'm glad, because I think that's the only way, it wouldn't have felt worse or more tragic.
So I think they removed that the evening of the night before he died. And so it was only a few more hours after that. Once again, the blood oxygen level dropped into the mid-80s, and it hung there for a while. And I went back and got some sleep. And then when it dropped into the 60s and then the 50s, it was in the 50s when I got there. And we had a few more hours.
And the only reason that we knew that was an indicator was because of the amazing nurse Sheila that was just honest with us. The other doctors that were saying, oh, just turn off the monitor, whatever, they can go fuck themselves, honestly. I'm sorry if you can't cuss on here, but
you can.
I'm so mad
Free of speech.
Suggested that, because how dare you not, let us know what to look for so that we can be prepared and that we can all be here. We've been here for a week. There's been all of us every single day. And if you don't see all of us here, obviously we all want to be there, just like that's the human part of it, just observing that we've all been through sitting in this hospital room day in and day out, spending the night, and then suggesting to turn off the monitor. Oh my God. Come on.
Palliative care doctor specifically who suggested that. And who even kind of condescended to us for being so hooked to it. And we couldn't explain to him, no, it's because we don't want to be here in a week for another week with knowing nothing's going to change, except it's going to tear us and drag us even further,
Like, we know that his organs are slowly shutting down. We get that. We get the concept of what's going on. We just want to know when we have an hour so that we can get everybody here together so that we can all hold his hand and he can go peacefully surrounded by his family. I don't think that's too much to ask for. And God, no, we're not obsessively looking at it. We're just trying to figure this all out. And God, I thought that was so rude.
Yeah, there were no significantly observable changes in his, can't really call it behavior. He did very little.
Yeah, there was that.
His breathing was relatively steady.
No, the last 2 days, his body was just, it was almost like it was just automatically doing it. It wasn't him consciously breathing. It was just the natural thing that your body does. Just like his heart rate, it was just going because it does. And it was doing what it could for the organs that were still going. But we knew. They told us on day 0, when we went in, that his organs were just going to slowly shut down and that was going to be it. So, we didn't really hold out hope that he was going to wake up. It's not like anybody was sitting there thinking that he was miraculously going to come out of this. He made a decision. They gave him the choice. If you want to go to the ICU, when your MAP number gets to the certain number, we'll take you to the ICU and you'll be on tubes through your mouth. You'll probably be on a vent. You'll have all of these things and life support and whatever. And he didn't want to do that. He chose to let the infection take its course. So, for any doctor to just tell us, you're wrong for looking at the monitor, whatever, just to be an asshole about it was just,
yeah.
Oh, I wish I could remember that tall Grey's Anatomy doctor name that we had that was just specifically just an asshole that all of us hated. Because I wish I could just write a review about him or something, because that pissed me off.
You guys have a better memory of the specific staff than I do, but you saw them more than I did. There was one little incident a little bit earlier, my second visit, that I wanted to mention. I'm not sure why, but it was really poignant. There was more Jay in this than almost any other moment besides the time he was listening to Ripple. A nurse came in. Once again, I was with him by myself, and you guys were out getting lunch or doing something. A nurse came in and said, "How are you doing?" And he said, "I'm lying here, trying not to die, trying to stay alive." That was Jay. A little gallows humor between him and me and the nurse. I'm lying here, trying not to die. And that middle week, we couldn't really have a good in-depth conversation because he just couldn't put together. He was there, but he wasn't. His brain wasn't on 100%, and he had difficulty talking. But he sure loved having the people around. So that was great. All right, I think we have probably covered this topic, and if anybody out there in podcast land listening or watching it, if you went through this with us at a greater distance, you got to see a little more up close. And as we go forward, we're never going to forget about Jay. I don't know if we'll keep the name. I lost the bug. I don't know if we'll keep the name Jay and Gary Show long term. If we'll change it to something else. I had talked to two of Jay's best friends from his WebEx days, Jocko and Jay Headblade, about would they like to do something because they had been radio people and they are not in the creative side of things anymore. They're both doing things in media, but they don't get to, get on microphones and have fun. And I asked them if they would like to help us keep the show going, and they said, in the moment anyway, yes, they would. So we'll see if they still want to spend some time doing that. Other than that, I'm not sure exactly where we'd like to go, but Sarah, every time I mention let's do podcast, you're first to say absolutely yes, let's do it.
I just want to do anything that gives me a platform to talk about him or to honor him in some way. Going out of my comfort zone to do that, if that's what I have to do, I'll do that, because I'm not a public speaker necessarily like he was, which is crazy because I wait tables for a living. But I don't know. I like doing this. I like talking about him and thinking about memories and talking about what we can do further and, where we go from here. So I'm all for it.
Yeah. Look who kicked my chair. I can't get the mic any closer to you. You'll have to get closer to it.
Well, I can't hear what anybody's saying. So
I can give you a little bleed here.
That would help.
There we go. It's my lovely wife, Cindy. You could actually log on to the Zoom, but we're almost done.
I figured, yeah. But I just want to pop in and say hi, Happy New Year.
Hi, Happy New Year.
I've just been out partying around the neighborhood. We got invited to 2 different New Year's Day lunch/dinners.
You haven't been drinking though, right?
No. Nancy's were trying really hard, but no.
Dale and I discussed that before we went on the air.
Oh, goody.
Before we went on the air.
Oh, before you went on the air.
Yes.
Okay.
That you have a little too much fun once in a while.
Once in a while.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I was just right next door the last time. So I just had to stumble across the yard.
All right. So, Happy New Year.
Yes, Happy New Year.
All right. So let's see. Back to us folks here. You can hang around if you want. Can you hear them?
No.
Oh, say something, Sarah.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, she can hear you now a little bit. I can't put up much speaker in the background or it will make feedback. Mm-hmm. So I guess we'll wrap up. And so we have now hit the official best length for a podcast, which is 2 hours. And like I say, we will, as we continue to do this, we'll talk about Jay now and then. It is in Jay's honor and his memory, but there's lots of other stuff to talk about. You guys are both, we're all liberal commie pinkos at one level or another. And both looking back at things that have happened in the past year, I think we realized that the one bright spot, Dale, was the birth of your daughter, Charlotte.
Yeah. If not for that, although I will say it made dealing with everything that we just talked about extra difficult for me because I was torn constantly, traveling back and forth constantly. But what really sent this year over the top for me, because I have quantified the worst years of my life and ranked them, was the big FU from Trump right after my dad died. That's really changed how I'm looking at the rest of my life. So lots to talk about. Yeah.
Yeah. As we try to figure out what the fuck is up with half of this country.
And only 15 to 20% of them, even if you break it down.
Yeah. Well, tell you what, I mean, I have my political thoughts about what happened and why it happened and that stuff. And that sounds like great fodder for a show coming up soon.
With a purpose, yes. Yeah. Yes.
So Sarah, you're probably the one who Dale doesn't have a job. His job is taking care of Charlotte. but he does have to schedule time. So that's a job. He does have to schedule time so he can, be available. With Katie being, doing the mom duty, and she has big time job.
She goes back next week. Yeah.
Yeah. And Sarah, your schedule is probably chaotic, or is it pretty regular these days?
Well, I start school in a couple weeks, so
that's right. You're going back to school too.
Yay!
Yeah, so it's going to be very busy, but I will have Tuesdays between 9 a.m. and 2 p.m. and then Fridays free.
Okay, so I'll put up a note on our Facebook group, and we'll see when we can do this. And we'll aim probably. I mean, I'd love to do once a week, but that's probably asking you guys to commit too much time. So it's probably going to be like every 2 weeks or so.
Sure.
We'll see what we can do. It could come up sooner than that. And we would love feedback in the YouTube comments from whatever we gather as an audience, from the, whatever we had as the subscribers to the Jay and Gary Show. And then once again, take on Joe Rogan and become the most popular podcast in America. That's my goal. All right. I had music that we did for this show, and I am playing in the background. Let's see. I'm looking for a button that puts up. There we go. There's Who We Are. Dale, Jay's son. Anything you want to say about yourself? But that didn't last very long. I can do better than that. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, about myself. If there is anybody watching this, I need to make money with my brain. I'm a programmer and an artist.
So if somebody has, you like doing gaming programming and stuff like that?
Yeah, I mostly like solving problems, almost any problem.
All right. Somebody needs something in the computer range, go for that. Sarah, do you know what you're going to be studying in school?
I'm going for sociology.
You want to understand people. Good luck with that.
I do. And I want to contribute to society somehow.
All right.
I don't know how just yet, but I'm hoping this year I will find some inspiration and figure out what my passion is. If I've learned anything about my dad, it's that he was passionate and driven and knew exactly what he wanted to do. And I would love to find that out about myself.
And you guys will both become really professional podcasters, whatever that is these days, because, the old radio model that I came from is kind of broke. So we will see. I'm Jay's brother, Gary, the older brother. I'm retired, and this is all I do. Just have a good time doing this. So we will see all of you guys next time we do a show. Oops, I made the music fade out. I need the music to fade out because I'm going to stick in the way we say goodbye. This has been. I had that audio channel faded out. I'm going to try again. This is Who We Are. Bye, everybody.